He served his country, and then it was his country that betrayed him. In today's Freedom Files, Wrongfully Convicted, Al and I spoke with Ray Krone, a man who was sent to death row for a crime he didn't commit. Here's Ray's story. December 29th, 1991, Phoenix, Arizona. A female employee at a local bar is found stabbed to death and sexually assaulted in the bar's men's restroom. Police turn their focus on one of the bar's regulars, Ray Krone.
And I was taken downtown, and for the next 3 hours, I was grilled about how long we've been dating, where'd we go on dates. I kept telling her I didn't date her.
Ray has an alibi, which he shares with police.
I was home in bed, got a roommate knows I was home in bed. I had no reason to kill her.
But investigators continue their pressure.
He had a search warrant. The search warrant said I was required to give a hair sample, a blood sample, and a cast of my teeth.
The impression of his teeth is the police's smoking gun.
I had a tooth that protruded when I was 18 years old. I was a passenger in a head-on collision. I woke up in the hospital with a broken jaw, my mouth wired shut.
Ray is arrested and charged with murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault.
They were talking about the death penalty, and that's when I think when the most critical time for them to start labeling somebody a monster.
Ray is dubbed the Snaggletooth Killer as he begins the fight for his life.
They brought a bite mark expert in, a real impressive man. He was a very powerful speaker, very convincing.
With all the lies stacked against him, Ray's clean record and years of service in the Air Force mean nothing. He is found guilty and sentenced to death, plus 21 years. Ray spends his days in isolation.
I had a cement slab for a bed. I wrapped my towel around my sneakers. That was my pillow to sleep on at night.
In 1996, after 3 years on death row, Ray wins his appeal and is given a new trial.
That trial started, as I said, in February. It lasted 7 weeks. Over 500 exhibits were introduced. We had 3 bite mark experts testify for us. The DNA from that saliva was not my DNA.
DNA evidence being new in the 90s, the prosecutor tells jurors it can't be trusted and to disregard it. They do, and Ray's second trial ends the same as his first.
The judge said this case went on him for the rest of his life. He said he had lingering residual doubt of my guilt. And then he said, I'm sentencing you to 25 to life for the murder.
After 10 years in prison, Arizona changes its law on DNA testing and convictions, allowing Ray's team to get the victim's clothing tested.
That lab technician, but she took that DNA sample now and put it right there in that little DNA data bank, and it came back with a match.
The DNA is matched to Kenneth Phillips, a man in prison for an unrelated sex crime.
He admitted that he had an alcohol problem, said he woke up with blood on him, wondering, my God, did I do that?
On April 8th, 2002, Ray is released from prison. Ray, welcome to DBL. Now, I really wanted to get to this question first. Your first trial hinged on the prosecutor's so-called bite mark expert, okay? But your teeth were not a match. Is it true that the expert was actually paid for his testimony?
It's very true. It's outrageously true. It's disgustingly true. It's shamefully true.
Wow.
And at my second trial, we actually had 3 bite mark experts that completely were not in agreement with him. And incredibly, this happened in 92, the second trial in 96. Since then, a lot has happened in bite mark identification. They now say that bite mark evidence should only be used to exclude somebody, never to include. It's a result of so many mistakes made on the behalf of people that represented forensic dentistry and courtrooms and got it wrong.
Let's talk about the prosecutor in your case, Noel Levy. 2 of his death row cases have been overturned because of innocence, yours included. But he said, hey, I just did my job and I did it ethically. What are your feelings towards him?
Just doing his job, as he says. Unfortunately, some of the biggest liars in that courtroom actually were elected officials saying they were there to represent the good people of the state of Arizona.
I wanted to ask you, having spent some time there, Ray, on death row, what do you say to people who say, I believe the death penalty is the best way to make a criminal suffer? How do you feel about that?
I used to support the death penalty. I never thought about it much. It wasn't going to affect me or my family. What really did it have bearing on me? We weren't criminals. We didn't live with criminals. And, we believed and trusted the system, so be it. But I don't like to be lied to by anyone. money, and especially my government that I'm supposed to trust and I pay money to, tax-wise. And to tell me that, we get it right. It's only the worst of the worst. It's a deterrent. All those things are lies, and it's been proven over and over again. I don't think any of us were ever raised to be God or play God over other people's lives. And locking them away for life, they're safe. And believe me, if you want them to suffer, lock them up in our prisons, our Department of Corrections around the country. They are not a country club.
Tell us about witness to innocence.
There's no question of my innocence. The day I was released, I walked out of prison that day to start my life all over again at the age of 45. But I also walked out with the distinction of being the 100th person in America to have had a death sentence, later to be free, to be exonerated. 100 mistakes have been made in our country. And a reporter in the back had raised his hand. He said, well, Mr. Krone, given your faith in God, how do you justify him leaving you in prison for 10 years?
Oh, my goodness.
What? How do you answer a deep soul-searching question? Like, I just walked out of prison. It's right behind me, 100 yards. How do I justify God leaving me in prison for 10 years? And then something came into my head, and I said, well, maybe it's not about those 10 years I spent in prison. Maybe it's about what I have to do the next 10 years.
Oh, my gosh.
We have over 30 members, only national organization of death row survivors in America, both men and women who had suffered the injustice of being called an animal, a throwaway person, a monster, was sentenced to death, later to find out that they were innocent.
For those of you wanting to learn more, again, visit witnesstoinnocence.org. Support that organization, support Ray. We want to thank you again for joining us on DBL. Thanks again. We'll be right back.
Thank you, Ray.
My pleasure. Thank you.